this realm, it's all intense. Searching the portal of the paranormal, we delve deep in shadows thick, where data creeps. Bring the history back to life, we fight in this haunted realm. We stand and ignite. Through the dust, the breath we sense. In this realm, it's all intense.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of PTTP Paranormal Uncut. I hope everyone is doing well. Tonight we have a fantastic returning guest. I've become really good friends with our guest tonight, hypnotherapist. He does past life regression. He did it on me, which was amazing. And tonight we're going to delve in a little bit deeper about how hypnotherapy works, what it does to the mind. But as always, anyone joining, always feel free to ask questions. So we will definitely, share out your questions and, delve in deeper. So I'm going to bring on Paul Goddard and we're going to have a great chat about what he does and how it really works. So let's bring him on. Hey, Paul, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Nando, and thank you so much for asking me back. I really, really enjoyed our time last time you invited me onto your channel.
Yeah, I think the last time we had a chat, I was getting to know you, and then we started talking, like, sending recipes over about food, totally off subject. And then we did a podcast on your podcast, which was fascinating. And it's just recently, seeing things, watching YouTube about different things about hypnotherapy, it sort of gets you thinking about how it actually works. So we're just going to delve into a little bit deeper about how the mechanics work and how you do it. But before we do, just want to give a few shout outs to people that are joining us. So we've got Abby that's saying hi. Hi, Abby. Hope you're doing well. We've got the loudmouth of the Irish, Jenny from Emerald Isle Paranormal Researchers out in Ireland. Hope you're doing well. As I said before, anyone that's joining, hey, Nick, hope you're well. Please ask your questions, but I'm going to kick this off. And really, the first question I want to have is a bit of a recap with you, Paul. What first drew you to hypnotherapy, and what was your journey into the profession?
Sure. Well, I have always been fascinated with hypnosis. One of the very first times I did see hypnotherapy being, and this was therapeutic, was a dentist who was also a hypnotherapist, and he would help his clients relax themselves down when in their mind it was the ordeal of the drill. But he would use it very successfully. And I remember watching it thinking, wow, this is amazing. Before then, I knew about Paul McKenna and his popular ITV show, The Hypnotic World of Paul McKenna, where people were doing lots of amusing things on it, which is just a side of hypnosis. But hypnotherapy can do an awful lot more. I was always fairly shy in certain aspects of schooling, but other aspects I was quite confident because it's all context specific. So I became slightly interested in that because of learning exams. I mean, I did also have a sensational snooker cassette that was bought for me for Christmas. And I always, although when when you finish school, you do like the careers advisor and the different things you want to do. Hypnotherapy was actually one of the things I did mention at the time. However, my real goal and passion was radio, and I still love radio. And I also had dreams of being a nightclub DJ. Now, I was lucky and I did do some nightclubs, some bars, but I really wanted to be doing the big super clubs. And I was very much into chill out music and would have loved to be one of the DJs at Cafe Del Mar in Ibiza. That sort of thing was my big sort of goals. But I was held back from the fear of rejection. So it was actually when my dad was unwell. We were on a break with my dad, and we were in Weston-super-Mare because the sea air would have been good for his health. He was going through cancer treatment at the time. And it was my mum actually pointed out, because she did know that I had, like, these sort of fear of rejection things going on. The book Paul McKenna, Change Your Life in 7 Days, and it really did. It moved me forward. But then my dad's health got worse, and he started doing a lot of self-hypnosis to help himself. And unfortunately, although it was a blood clot that went to his lungs that killed him, he was actually beginning to get a little better with, we don't know how the cancer was going, but it's interesting with the mind and body affect each other, which I will get onto very, very shortly as well. But he was beginning to get some strength back, which had completely gone. So I was thinking, if it wasn't for the blood clot, could have he potentially have healed himself? And it started me on a journey of the mind. And then there was also another Paul McKenna program on around the time of just his passing, which was the Paul McKenna, I Can Change Your Life. And he was really helping people move from their stuck state to their desired state. He also, in that episode, helped a man that was blind. It wasn't like his eyesight wasn't working, but there was a misconnection after a head injury from his eyes to his brain. And Paul McKenna managed to help him gain some of his sight back. And the reaction of what the husband to his wife, the husband was the one who was blind, seeing his wife for the first time was just fantastic. And it really started me thinking, because Dad was really loving listening to these hypnotherapy CDs, self-hypnosis CDs. I thought to myself, I love music. Being involved with loud music isn't great for your ears for a long period of time. So I started thinking, as much as I love music, and music is always part of my life, and I still listen to music now. I still love it. I still got the decks. But I thought, when you're DJing, you're giving happiness for a night. That's if they like music. I mean, there was a few times when a few Hindus, I don't think I've really made a very happy Hindu for them. But it was happiness for a night, whereas this, learning the hypnosis, learn the NLP, could be happiness for a lifetime. It started me on a journey. From that journey, went into the hypnosis in the past life, which is kind of mostly what a lot of people know me for these days. So that's a rather long way how I got into it. And I think it's important to walk your talk. It doesn't mean that it's a steady stream of yourself improving. You'll improve, and all of a sudden your life will hit a road bump. It's wallop down. But it's remembering the techniques, making sure you have that groundwork in, and just pick yourself up and starting again, and being honest. And I think, I'm someone who's happy to share about my struggles, and I think that's nice when you have a client, because some clients come in very fearful. They feel they're going to be judged, or they feel silly what they're upset about, or they feel stupid for acting in a certain way. And you can you have that real empathy, but also know that you could probably be sitting in the chair saying the same thing back to you. So it's important to realize that everybody's on the journey themselves, and I just really love helping people. And also I like applying the tools and techniques myself and helping myself grow and move forward.
Yeah, definitely. And you sort of touched on how important it is for your clients to feel the trust, because that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, is how important is it, the trust between you and your clients when you're doing these sessions?
It's absolutely important, because if you don't have that trust, you're not going to get anywhere. So there's the 3 R's in NLP. There's the respect for other people. Then you have to also reassure people, because a lot of people's experience, particularly of hypnosis, is seeing the stage shows, and they think that you've got full control over their thinking and what they're going to do, and they're quite fearful. So reassure people that's what it's not about, and explain fully the process of hypnosis and what it will do, and letting people know that it's a self-induced state that you help guide somebody into, rather than that you'll put them into that state. And then we also got to the last R, is recognize that each of us has our own unique model of the world. So my beliefs and thoughts might not be the same as the person sitting in the chair talking to me, but it's important to realize that perhaps if I had their upbringing, perhaps if I had all the experiences that they had, maybe my model of the world would be nearer to theirs than what mine is. So you have to respect that each person is an individual.
Oh, that's brilliant. And with that said, how does hypnosis interact with the conscious and the subconscious mind?
Well, we're programming ourselves all the time anyway. A lot of people are talking to themselves all the things that they can't do rather than the things that they can do. And the subconscious mind is brilliant. It helps us, it guides us, it warns us, but it also knows one word, which is yes. So if you're constantly, I'm not very good, I'm going to mess this up again. Why does this always happen to me? Your subconscious mind is going to think yes and start programming yourself for more of that. So it's taking that thinking and put it to more positive thinking and start saying all the things that people can do. So we're hypnotizing ourselves all the day anyway. And through doing hypnotherapy, you're helping to basically dehypnotize negative program that's put in. Because as children, we are pretty confident. You know, we're hungry, we cry, and we get fed most of the time if
Yeah.
we've got good parents. And a lot of children are only kind of sort of fearful of a few things, and one of those is loud noises that will upset them. But they're finding their way through the world, and as we go through, we're really these diamonds, and we start getting like manure piled upon ourselves, and it's getting through that all that stuff that is put on top to the diamond that we all are underneath. So it's breaking apart those beliefs. Something people tell us, you know, if somebody just said you're a useless person, for some people that would be enough to crush them. But sometimes if repetition is so important, what I do and teach. So if somebody's constantly putting somebody down, you know, eventually that person may start believing it. So it's undoing all those things. So the conscious and subconscious, I think they work in hand. You know, you cannot have the one without the other. The subconscious mind is just working constantly in the background, and you can use your conscious mind to start programming your subconscious mind to be more positive and productive.
Brilliant, brilliant. And you know, you're doing your sessions with hypnotherapy, but what actually happens in the brain when someone enters the hypnotic state?
Well, where we are and where people watching right now are is beta, normal waking consciousness. Although they might be in alpha, because a lot of people then drop the wavelengths down a bit and it cycles per second, so the brainwaves start to slow down. And usually what's called a light trance, or people enter during meditation, is what's known as an alpha state. So the brainwaves start to slow down a little more, and at that state people can become more suggestible only to what the person is happy to take on board. And if you're suggestible and been telling yourself all the negative things, then you're going to be even more suggestible when you're in that alpha state. So the idea is because we have this chatter, you put somebody in hypnosis and they drop their brainwaves down, and you can get through without that critical person that is on their shoulder telling, no, you can't do this, because they're just relaxed and they're receiving those positive information. Or sometimes you can get to the subconscious mind to talk to them. But if it's classic hypnotherapy, most of the time I'm just talking to someone. Below that, the brainwaves slow down even further. You've got theta, and that is quite a deep state of hypnosis, quite a deep state of trance. Somebody in that state will probably just need to be shaken a little bit if they were falling asleep, or you give suggestions and they will come out of it. But you're in a deeper state of trance, and in that realm, somebody could still answer you in hypnosis, but you can certainly tell when somebody hits that theta range because they are out. Then you've got your delta at the bottom of that, which is a deep sleep. Now, you have some hypnotherapists that say if they reach delta, they're no longer really that conscious because they've shut off and they're not going to be taking in the positive suggestions. Now, one of those things, if you speak to hypnotherapists, if you spoke to 10 different hypnotherapists, you may well get 10 different answers. I personally believe that the subconscious mind never sleeps. So even if someone falls asleep, I believe that as long as you don't want them to answer, I believe the positive suggestions you're saying will go into the subconscious mind. Because I remember, not a very clever thing to do, but I used to fall asleep listening to the radio sometimes, and obviously they did the news bulletin, and the next morning I put on the news and you would hear what's happening in the news. You think, oh, I kind of know that because it's gone into the subconscious. I've certainly known that it's been thundering in my dreams, not realizing that it's been thunder and lightning. And in my dreams, I've been dreaming that there's been explosions or thunder. So I'm of the school that thinks the subconscious mind never sleeps. So I actually think it's quite good if you've got positive programming, stating everything in the positive, and you've just got it running quietly in the background whilst you're sleeping. I'm one of those believers that think it will go into your subconscious mind and really help.
Brilliant. We do have a question from Sarah, and she's asked, have you ever come across anybody that can't be hypnotized?
I have come across people that refuse to let themselves be hypnotized, and it's through fear. Everybody can be hypnotized. We all will go into a hypnotic trance throughout our day. Anybody that drives and they've been on automatic pilot and you're supposed to be seeing a friend, but you're thinking, oh God, I'm driving to work now, you've gone into a hypnotic trance. Anybody that's watched a film or read a book and felt emotions for a character that's either in trouble, has died, is going through something fantastic, and you're feeling the excited emotions for that character, you're in a hypnotic trance. So it's a state we actually get into all the time anyway. It's just very, very occasionally I will come across people that will just refuse to do it. And sometimes I think people like to feel they're just totally in control. And even though you explain everything to them, and it happens very, very rarely, you will have people that will do the complete opposite just because I don't know why they feel they can. But they're very, very rare, and it doesn't happen very often.
So is hypnosis more about relaxation? Is it focusing the mind, or is it something deeper within the mind?
Well, it's focusing the mind internally. It's when your attention goes inwards, and that is often done by relaxation. That's the preferred way through hypnotherapists. You can get to that relaxed state very quickly. Although when I have a client, my preferred method is to do it slowly. Although occasionally I will come across some people, very occasionally, that I'm trying everything, and I will think, right, okay, I've got to do a rapid induction here because that's what they need. So it's very rare that I will do that. I like to take somebody nicely into relaxation. But you see like footage of like tribal dancing. They're all in a trance. They're in hypnosis, and they could probably be doing a lot of, and probably are doing a lot of positive programming in that space whilst they're in that trance. But it's not a relaxation. So it's when you really turn your intention inward. And the way of knowing hypnosis is to experience hypnosis. That was said by the late great Dr. Milton Erickson, who was a psychologist and a hypnotherapist.
Right. And how effective is hypnotherapy when it comes to things like, people that come through to you with anxiety, phobias? Is it easy to get them to switch off, or is it a gradual thing that they need to do more than one session?
I say some people it can be done in one session. Other people it takes about 3. Then you have your people that want to see me a bit longer, just as like a coach. But I will have that agreement that this is to help keep going through a load of things that you are working through. If it's just somebody comes for one specific reason and it's the 3rd session and the person isn't feeling any better after the 3rd session, I will say to someone, I think it might be an idea that you look somewhere else. And I've done that a few times, not very often, but a few times, because I think it wouldn't be ethical of me to keep someone coming back just to get the money coming in. You've got to make sure that, and some people prefer things like CBT, or some people like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, to the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because that's the way the mind works. Some people like combining both of them. So I'm not totally precious with it that you have to do NLP, you have to do hypnotherapy. That's my preferred method. I do find that even now I get people that try and get me to do a certificate in something else. It'll be another thing to add to your bow. And yes, it is good to learn different models, but literally you can spend your life learning different methods of therapy and never actually helping anybody out because you're just constantly learning. And I think some people, they think, no, this is the best thing. Everything else doesn't work. This is the thing. And because we're each a different person, each person has a different model of the world. They have a different viewpoint. Doesn't mean that, this is the one which will only work. It's what works well with the person. Is the client a good fit with the therapist? It's all these important things that are so much in the healing work.
So on the same sort of lines then, so you have, say for example, I come to see you because I have a phobia, how do you get them to face it in a hypnotic state? Like, so do they confront their phobia? Is that what you're getting them to essentially do? How does that work to get them to release that phobia?
There's different methods. There's the NLP fast phobia cure, which you get somebody to see it in reverse from the moment that, it's a lot more, actually I'll explain it. So basically someone who did the fast phobia technique would come to you, you put them in the cinema, you disassociate themselves from their body, and you can double dissociate the body. So you're looking at the back of their head, looking at a cinema screen, and you get them to see the video going forward in black and white, watching the moment the phobia started to the moment when, just before it started, to the moment when the shock had finished and they knew they were safe. And then you put them into the film, run it backwards in color, and basically scramble it in someone's mind. That works very well for a lot of people. Sometimes Joseph Wolf had another successful way of helping with people, which I also take on board with some clients, and that's a case of desensitization. So you put yourself in a slightly stressful situation and you give them a 10 out of 10 being, this is the worst that the phobia can be, you can't handle it. 0 being that you can handle it. And you give them a number of 3. So if you put themselves in a situation, so let's say they have a fear of spiders. Looking at a photograph of a spider is too much, but looking at a hand drawing of a spider, sorry if anybody has a spider phobia at the moment, looking at a hand drawing of a spider that's quite realistic is a 3 out of 10. So they got a bit of nerves. That's okay to move on. But you want having a bit of nerves for saying is absolutely fine. But if it's uncontrollable, then you withdraw. So if you show the photograph of the spider, it was too much, you take that away. And then you would show them a photograph of a picture of a spider, the hand-drawn one, until they felt they could handle that. Then you add in the photograph of the spider. And is that a 3 out of 10 or more? So again, 10 being as fearful as could be, 0 not. If it's then gone down to a 3, you can then move on. If they then show a video of the spider and it's, say, a 6, you then withdraw and go back to the photograph of the spider. So you're basically gradually desensitizing them. And that's also a very successful way. There's lots of ways of helping with a phobia. One that I never do is one called flooding. It's not an NLP or hypnotherapy technique, and that's just throwing someone in the worst possible situation that they can be in. I remember seeing an interesting program on TV, and they got someone to climb up. I think it was the work tower, the workman's ladder way of going up Blackpool Tower. And basically the 2 people who were the therapists were behind him, and he had to go to the top. And he had to actually lean out over the top as well. And the only way he was going to get down after he started going up was to actually go up and do it. So he was there shaking halfway up, saying, I can't go up, I can't go up. They said, you can only come down if you go up to the top. And they were just standing behind him. They weren't moving. They were staying there. Don't worry, I'm not going to do this to people. And he was crying. And they said, no, you've got to go up. And they literally forced him to the top until he did look out. I don't think it works so well for him, that one, actually, out of all the different things. But there's different sort of theories. I prefer the more gentle approach. That's the way that I work. You do get occasionally people that do need a good talking to about certain things, but that's different of the techniques. But as your model of the world will be different to different clients, I'm talking to the client for a while. I'm getting to know how they work and then finding a way. Sometimes you get the way straight away. Sometimes it's a little bit like finding a path in fog. you just explore, and then away will happen. So yeah, when somebody says, what do you do if you've got a phobia, what do you do if you've got smoking, you want to do smoking sensations, one for confidence, I'm never say this is what I do, this and this. I will find out what is good for the client.
So is it in a way that you're closing off certain parts of their brain to those phobias, or like you're saying with someone that wants to give up smoking, is it sort of shutting down parts of the brain that gives the message that, oh, I need to go outside and have a cigarette now, or
Well,
I'm scared of this?
we have these neural pathways, and the more they fire together, the more they wire together, and the more they start firing, the more you're creating a habit pattern in your life.
Mm.
What you do with a client is present through hypnosis, through NLP, a different path that they can take, and then fire in those neural pathways. And one of the explanations I give, and I've given it ever since I started, like in 2006, when I first started my training, and I like the way this analogy works, so it's how I stick to it, is if you had, say, a football pitch, and you had a group of people kept walking in a line over and over, exactly the same path. Eventually, you'll wear a groove into the path. And then even if you stuck seed over that area and kept walking over that path, the grass isn't going to grow because it's just going to be completely and utterly, worn, a groove.
Yeah.
That's the path you don't want to take. But if you kind of had a few people sprinkle some seeds and you start taking a new path, soon that grass will start growing. And because people are taking this new path, that's the channel, the neural pathway that is created. So that's the way I like to sort of think about it, is that repetition along other things is absolute key. If you pick up a self-hypnosis CD, I'm going back in time because a lot of MP3s now, but I like CDs.
Yeah.
Pick one of those CDs or get an MP3. A lot of hypnotherapists will say, listen to this for 21 days. I personally like 90 days. I think it takes 90 days to really, some say 40 days and you're really getting on path then, but I think 90 days. And yes, it only takes about 25 minutes per MP3 to listen to. But what you're doing is driving that information in, and not just listening to the CDs. I like people to make sure they talk to themselves in a very positive way, and it has to be stated in the positive. So if somebody says to me, I'm not going to be afraid anymore, the word which is sticking in most people's mind is afraid. So you have to take it totally in the positive. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be calm about this. That's the way to sort of talk to the subconscious mind. And for some people, that's a big jump. So instead of saying I am confident, you say something like I am in the process of becoming confident, because it's unfolding. A phrase that is said an awful lot. Some hypnotherapists like it, some don't. I'm on the school that like it. Every day and every way I'm getting better and better. So if somebody was disorganized and untidy, every day in every way I'm getting tidier and tidier. By saying those words to yourself repetitively, you start to get those neural pathways firing together. So you see that bit of litter in the corner of the house and think, okay, I'll pull it away, because you've started that little beginning bit of the neural pathway beginning to fire. So again, some people going straight, I'm a tidy person. Good. Other people, I'm in the process. Other people, every day in every way. So it depends what works. And there's also a saying in NLP, test, operate, test, exit. So you basically test something, you operate it. Did it work? If it didn't, you adapt it. If it did work, you keep it going. So I get people to try different things and how they feel internally, because some people might say, I'm in the process. They might say, that doesn't feel like it's happening. I don't feel I can attract that to me. But someone who's kind of thinking, that it's too much of a step, that would be a good way of going into it.
And we're talking about doing it on the basis of things like anxiety, phobias. But does it also work with people that have suffered with addictions? So say someone wants to get clean from substance abuse or alcohol, can you still use therapy, like hypnotherapy, as a way to try and stop them from having those addictions?
Yes, absolutely. When it's something like addiction, I will get them to speak to their GP usually first,
Yeah.
because just to make sure there's not any big underlying things going on that I need to know about. And also as well, if the person really does need to have psychotherapy help, then maybe my route is not the thing for them. But I do get people for alcohol, for substance abuse. I mean, to be honest, smoking tobacco can be seen as a substance
Yeah.
abuse. So, you know, it's an addiction. You get to find out often why people are doing it. It could be to feel relaxed, particularly for the smoking. There may be a whole load of different reasons, and then you give them enough reasons to stop. I think
Yeah.
in the previous time we spoke, I spoke about towards and away from value. So if
Yeah.
you're moving towards something, that's moving towards something positive. So you're moving towards more money if you want to stop smoking or alcohol, whatever it is. If you're moving away from it, it's just not be unwell. Um, it's not to be broke at the end of every month. So you find out the reason why someone's doing it. But I always like to, even if they're moving. Have I gone? Have I gone?
Yeah, you're still here. You come
Oh,
back.
oh, that's okay. Yeah, it just disappeared for a second then. So hopefully, did people hear that about the moving towards and moving away?
I think we got towards the last bit of what you were saying, then you sort of
So yes,
disappeared.
it's important that you're feeling positive, you know, and that you do throw in some positive, even if you're avoiding becoming unwell, because I think moving towards something positive is far nicer than moving away from something negative. And I find that people feel more motivated if there's a positive goal at the end of it.
Yeah, definitely. Andy asked a question. In a controlled paranormal investigation, could you deep state between timelines?
Andy, okay. Hopefully, I'm answering this right. Yeah, I have taken people back in time to potential events that have happened. Barry Guy in Help My House Is Haunted. I've also done it in events as well. It's something that I want to explore more, but I'm always up for exploring, taking people back in time, doing it in a very safe way, making sure that they're going to be okay going through the process. But I feel from certain experiments that I've done before that there's something in it.
Mm.
People can tap into it, whether it's imagination or whether they really are going back. But that's what is nice if you can get someone who can do a bit of research for you, find that little bit of information that maybe people don't know about, that haven't read it on Wikipedia.
No,
I hope that
definitely.
answers your question.
Great. I'm sure you'll ask another question if he has one. So going back to we're talking about vulnerability, you know. So a lot of the time when we go through a traumatic experience, we close a lot of our brain off to that, like you lock it away. So with hypnotherapy, can that help unlock memories that people have buried and forgotten about? So can you bring the past back forward for them to piece together what they're trying to figure out in their lives?
Well, there's several different schools of thought, and depending on the person, I'll jump into each different one, depending on what I feel is right, what they feel is right. Shutting something off in someone's life, it's so traumatic so they can't remember it, might not necessarily be such a bad thing. You might end
Yeah.
up actually changing the memory so it's more positive than it really was. I do regression therapy and take people back to certain times, but you have to be so careful because there is such a thing as false memory. And
Okay.
I haven't had it for such a long time. Funny enough, more in my early days, people would contact me that they felt that they were mistreated in the past and they want to go into hypnosis to see if that really did happen. The trouble is that hypnosis isn't a truth drug. It can unlock memories, but it's not a truth drug. And still, someone in hypnosis can say what they want to. So I would say that the person, if they did say yes, this person did do something unpleasant, it might be because they have a deep-seated belief and they've created that in their mind. There's also the danger that they put the wrong face to something that's happened. So you're opening up a can of worms if you're doing that. So I won't touch that for obvious reasons. But I do go back and do my version of timeline therapy if somebody was bullied at school. And that way you can maybe set up a conversation with the bully and find out what was going on in their life. And it's amazing what people can pick up on either a deep intuitive level or maybe some sort of even psychic level. And they say, well, I had an unhappy home life. And, you know, it was a way of me lashing out and feeling a bit better about myself. And then you can come to terms and release a lot of forgiveness. So that's really good of going back. And you're saying about things being locked. It really depends what it is. And it depends if what comes out could be potentially harmful, and always being aware that the hypnosis isn't a truth drug.
So do you need to like really? I take it you got a duty of care to your clients, then, that if you think it's not something that's worthwhile going into, or you think there's a risk factor, you would advise not to do it then, and that's the way of doing it.
Yeah. I think if there's any doubt, leave it out. And I didn't even mean that to rhyme then. I mean, there's one of my books up here. I'm not going to say which one it is, but you have to be careful when you do regression that you're not leading. You're guiding someone through the regression, but you're not leading. And one which I was quite surprised about, they're doing like a case study, and at one point, the hypnotherapist asking it, and did your daddy punish you? Now that's the leading question, because they might think, yes, it is. And when you're in rapport, because that's what it is, it's pacing, leading, taking the client into hypnosis. When you're in rapport, you're more likely to agree with the hypnotherapist. So when I do anything like this, I will say, can you move forward? Can you move back? If they say, like, my dad is in the room at the moment, I'll say, describe your dad. What's happening? Now, you know, those sorts of things, you've got to be so careful not to lead, you know, and there's been a lot of things I've come across on YouTube where I kind of think to myself, well, that was kind of a leading question. I wouldn't ask that. I wouldn't be arrogant enough to say I'm right and they're wrong, because as I said, if you listen to different hypnotherapists, they will give a different viewpoint on things.
Yeah.
But I like to minimize as much as you potentially can leading a client. It's always just guiding them forward through the regression, because I have done UFO experiences,
Yeah.
and only one has got close to being like the abduction that people go through. It tends to be people have a closer experience than what they have experienced. But, you know, I've heard and read in some books, you know, which is in Roy Hunter's book, The Art of Regression Therapy. Somebody said, you know, and it wasn't Roy Hunter that said that, he's saying the dangers of leading someone, but saying, you know, go through the light and let me know if there's a UFO there. And that was Roy Hunter's own experience of having a near-death experience, and was guided through being in the air, the alien spacecraft orbiting the Earth. So you have to be so very careful, because you can plant ideas in someone's head.
I know. And, you know, like putting a paranormal spin onto hypnotherapy. So you got someone in a hypnotic state, you're trying to get them to relay like a past event, or, you know, is it possible that during that state that they could be visited from family members or a spirit from the other side while they're, so instead of it being a memory, that person actually comes forward? So do you know, like where we go for a reading with a psychic medium, you know, we're sat there wanting to have that connection. Essentially, have you had that in your sessions
Yes.
where someone comes out of it and says, that wasn't a memory, that person come to me in spirit form?
Yes, I have had that. I have to be very careful because a lot of these experiences have been clients on the
Personal.
one-to-one basis
Yeah.
and very deeply personal stories. But I was reading a story in one of Roy Hunter's book about spiritual hypnosis, so I can mention that because it's a public one, where a son who was depressed died in a car accident as the son was driving back from college, as they said in America, but it would have been university here, and the mother had a lot of worry because the son was depressed and just wanted to go home and not do the courses anymore. That he, I'll be careful because it's YouTube, I know what YouTube can do, but basically crashed the car
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
purpose. She went into a hypnotic trance and said that she got from the son that that wasn't his intention. He was just so wanting to get home, and he'd been studying so hard with his exams
Wow.
that he didn't get any sleep and he didn't rest and ended up driving off the
Yeah.
road, which ended up killing him. So that was very healing in itself. Whether it is the sun coming through or whether it is the subconscious mind, but I think that in that situation, and it's a personal belief, the
Yeah.
hypnotherapist will say you can't tell if it's a subconscious mind coming up with a metaphor, but I'm going to step out on my sitting on the fence usually now and kind of what I feel. I believe that was genuine visit through spirit in
Yeah.
hypnosis because the mother was going through a lot of guilt, and I think if it was from herself, she would have thought the more negative
Yeah.
from it. That's a personal
That's
thing,
a
and
personal
when
thing.
somebody comes to me, I will never say, this is real. I will allow it for the person to experience what they experience. But for that lady in that story, it was very, very healing. And I can't really talk about
No. I can,
but
yeah.
it has been very healing in similar situations.
So you can. So hypnotherapy can be used in a paranormal field as such for,
Absolutely,
you
whether
know,
it's paranormal healing or paranormal fun and ghost hunting side
investigation.
of things.
Yeah, brilliant. Abby's got a question for you. She's just said, "Hi, Paul. Do you think phobias can be connected to something that scared you in the past life?"
Yeah, sometimes it can be. Most definitely. I'm trying to think any of the ones on my channel that have been through fears. Drowning. Actually, one that has given me permission is, somebody drowned on the Titanic. Now, everybody says the Titanic is such a famous story, but this person was in engine room 3. They came up with the name John Smith, which is okay. It's very common.
Yeah.
They explained was slightly different, and managed to pick up some of the places that they were. It was kind of a bit sort of sketchy. So the place begins with an R. Royce Trevor was a place that we found when we did some research after it. Whether it was the subconscious mind coming up with a metaphor or not, this person had a phobia of getting her head underwater after experiencing herself drowning as one of the stokers on the Titanic in engine room 3. She lost that fear and was quite happy to have water going ahead. So a fear is often from drowning, but there are other things. Some people are punished for voicing their opinions, so that's why they're shut down in this life. Loud noises. I think I might have said during the last one about the little boy Edward Austrian, who was fearful of dark, stormy nights. This is one of the children with spontaneous past lives. He had an operation to remove a cyst, but the first part of the operation was to remove the tonsils only. After the first part of the operation, he was telling about a story with him being in France and his feet being cold and damp and his rifle being heavy and being shot in the back of the neck. And then after experiencing that, because he was shot in the back of the neck where his cyst was before he went in for the second operation, he had disappeared, and that completely baffled the doctors. And also as well, this little boy was a boy that was just watching usual children's television. So he wasn't someone who would be watching war films or anything like that. And even if they were in the background, probably too bored to take any attention of it. So those sorts of things, can birthmarks and birth defects. The late great Dr. Ian Stevenson had pictures and pictures of people that claim to have a past life and have these birthmarks on them where they've been shot. And one of the interesting things is if one of the people that remember the past life, he didn't look into the hypnotic side of things really. He was more interested in the children with the spontaneous past life claims. But if a child or a child that was later older but still remembered the past life memories, often they would fade, but sometimes they would remember. They said they were shot in the chest and the bullet went through them. There'd be a birthmark on their chest and a larger birthmark behind where, if you have the exit wound is bigger.
Wow. And we're talking about past life and, moving on. So are we saying that, are we experiencing or are we delving into reincarnation then? Like if we're saying that we've had a past life, so are we living different lives in different moments and we're on like a loophole, like where we just keep continuously, or is it a case that we're continuously living different lives until we make the right decision in life before we go to what we say heaven and things like that? What's your thoughts there?
Well, there is the spiritual, the religious thinking behind past lives. From some saying you reincarnate a certain amount of times, to others saying it's endless, to some saying you reincarnate until you've learned the lessons that need to be learnt. I'm going to just go from what people have experienced when they've come to see me. So the majority of people, when they get to the life between lives moment, it's very difficult for them to explain because they can't really explain a spiritual aspect in a human form. I'm not knocking, and please don't think that I am, and people must do their own. I always say to people, be a student, not a follower. So don't just take what I say as being the truth, but I have seen some past life regressions, the life between lives, and they will say things like, now move into another area where your guides give you a message. You're presupposing that you're going to go to another area, presupposing that the guide's going to come to you. So again, that could be sort of lead-in. There are people who've written many books that have lots of really fascinating and interesting things in the life between lives. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying what people have experienced. But people tend to sort of have this feeling that they send themselves back. That's what comes through the majority of the time, that it's now time to come back. And I haven't really come across, apart from a few people, and those people that have said it have been more the ones that have read the spiritual books and things, so potentially they're being influenced by it, that they come back to learn lessons. But I find that the majority of people that come re-experience life because their soul feels they want to re-experience life, and there's certain things that they miss out in the life between lives, like the sight, the touch, the feel, the connection that you have a deep loved one that you can embrace, those sorts of things, the taste of food. That tends to be the reason people say they come back. But that's my experience when people have come to see me. But you read a load of other books and people have different experiences, so I'm not going to say which one's right or that. I'm just saying what I've experienced.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because it is like when you delve into religion, people have different points of view, and there's no right or wrong answer to it. But it's just, whenever it's like when we did the past life regression, when I did it with you, and do you know what? I never forget it. I went to bed that night and I was literally replaying every movement that I made, but it was in a totally different environment. Even things like the smell of the air was different. I know that sounds crazy, and it just made me think: is this something that we are doing? Like the film The Dog's Life, about a dog, but he's living different moments with different people until he gets to the right moment, and then he suddenly, at the end of the film, he's passed, and then he moves on to another life in heaven. And I'm just thinking, is that what we're essentially doing then?
Possibly. I mean, you've got people who go down the theory, say if they've got chronic pain, that it's because they did something wicked in a past life. I don't subscribe to that because I think that people that come to you and they're in pain and the last thing they want to hear. And I don't think it's a particularly healing thing to say something like that to someone when they're struggling. But people have come because they've been injured in the past life. Another interesting thing which can happen is if somebody, say, gets a back pain at 40, then they may have had an injury at the age of 40 in a previous life, and that's when it kicks in at this stage. It tends to be more things like being attacked, being injured, holding on to guilt themselves, why they have emotional problems. It doesn't come out, and I'm scanning my mind from the people that I've done. I don't think I've ever had any that said they're being punished. In fact, I'm going to say, yeah, nobody's ever said that they're being punished, and I don't think it's a very helpful thing personally to say or think that way.
Yeah, definitely. And we're talking about adults as well. Just to quickly touch on, is this something that could help children, like the younger minds? The reason I say it, we live in a world now where mental health is on the rise, and we're seeing a lot of the younger youths being affected by it. From the social life in schools, is it something that teenagers can get support with? Is it safe for them to go into a hypnotic state because their minds are quite much younger? And is there a different process that you would deal with someone like my age at the age of 40 to someone that's 15?
Children are actually really good hypnotic subjects because they enter play in imagination. They have imaginary friends, or are they? That's another avenue that one could explore. But children play games. I remember when we were at school, it was cops and robbers. Things like throwing bits of paper at each other and their cannonballs, those sorts of things. Children are really, really good. So you would do the hypnosis in a different way. You would do hypnosis in a different way to maybe someone else, but using a lot of the imagination, using it that way to allow someone to go inside themselves. And I'm such a great believer that there's a lot of pressure on children. I mean, not just now, but throughout history. I'm dyslexic, and it wasn't really that known when I was first at school, and I went to Winstones, which was really encouraging, but the previous school I went to, at times it could be really hard, and I believe my self-esteem suffered because of being dyslexic. So I think if they did a little bit of NLP in the morning, a little bit of creative visualization, I think that just doing that, building self-esteem, I think bullying would half in the playground, possibly even more than half. So I think really good entry level. I'm just going to show a book here because I'm going to show a couple of books if people are interested, and I've got no association with any of these. So that's a really good book to have, the really good fun cartoon book of NLP. That would be ideal for children because it's all got these absolutely fantastic, amusing pictures, and it's very much jargon. Another one, the 7 most effective habits, methods of self-hypnosis. Again, these are good, really entry-level books that people could go to as children. I think particularly NLP one, but there's some great methods in the self-hypnosis book that could be taught to children. It might be able to simplify it a little more, but those sorts of things would just be ideal for children, to learn.
To help them. That's brilliant. For someone that's curious about trying hypnotherapy, what advice would you give them? So would that be like the type of person to look out for, how to go into it?
I'd say email a hypnotherapist like myself. As long as, I do get people phone up and you have to say, look, I'll have to bring this to a close, because sometimes you have people that basically want a session for free and will ask you everything. But just to ask those questions, are you a good fit with the person? Ask what hypnosis is like and what it's about. Perhaps they might want to start off with say something like the self-hypnosis book there, to start their journey. If you are nervous, say you're nervous, because then the hypnotist can reassure people of what it's about and be understanding to the nerves. And that's the same with anything. If you are nervous about having blood taken, having injections, there's some great NLP hypnotherapy tools that you can use to help someone. But I think it's absolutely fine to say to the nurse, the doctor taking the blood or doing it, I'm nervous, and they will put things extra in place to make it better for you. So yeah, ask those questions. And I would say as well, just be open-minded to the process. You don't have to necessarily book. I mean, I think it's good to do more than one session, particularly if you want to lock that good, no more than 3 usually, but don't feel pressurized if it's not for you to have to do extra sessions. Make sure you feel that it's right for you. Watch YouTube videos, buy books, whatever's the best way for you.
Brilliant. And my final question, do you think hypnosis gives us access to parts of the mind that science still doesn't fully understand?
Well, there used to be that we only use 10% of the mind. In fact, you use 100% of the mind. Even in fact, when somebody is asleep, 95% of the brain is actually being used. So 100% of the brain is being used. 95% is being used even when you're sleeping. So that you only use 10% of the brain is a myth. But there's interesting way neural pathways fire and wire together. And I would be very interested if somebody wanted to have someone with those funny helmets on, that read the brainwaves and
Read the brainwaves,
the different things. I mean, things are happening all the time, with science, and there are scientists, fortunately, that are open-minded. There's a famous, and I can't remember the scientist's name off the top of my head, but very famous experiments that people are shown images on a computer screen, and they're randomly selected by the computer. And they're either extremely bland and pleasant, like sunsets, flowers, or extremely shocking ones that will make you, oof. And people are wired up. And there is a precognitive. So people seem to know a few seconds before, I think it's about 5 seconds or something beforehand, there is a registry in the brain before the shocking image is shown, presupposing that people have some sort of, even for just a few seconds, some form of sixth sense, and that's been documented several times. So I think I think that people need to be open-minded. Like with the hypnosis and the past life regression, I know that there are certain well-known psychologists that have looked into past lives and being very skeptical about it. But I think you have to be someone more like Dr. Ian Stevenson, who makes it a life work, looking at one subject and really focusing on it. And then by the end of that time, then you can say with more authority, they're saying it and not saying it, than doing a few months or a couple of years looking into something. It has to really be looked at and looked at and looked at, and I think that's the best way of doing it.
Brilliant. And just one more question from the audience. Nick has asked, if you're dreaming or having a nightmare, is that a hypnosis state or hypnotic state?
Well, hypnosis comes from James Braid, a Scottish surgeon, coined the phrase hypnosis because people will look like they're in some sort of sleep. And Hypnos was a Greek god, the god of sleep. So the brainwaves are slowed, and it won't just be people at delta when they sleep, they'll be moving around. So yes, it's kind of. I have hypnopompic images sometimes. So I'll come out of sleep and I will get these strange spiral graph patterns because I've woken up, but my brain's not quite woken up. So there's hypnagogic, which is going into sleep, that sometimes people get hallucinations. For me, it's patterns and I can tell it's hallucination. Some people, it can be like the spiders over the bed. So you'll go and see hypnagogic, hypnopompic, you're popping. up from sleep, and that's when I have them coming round, and these very strange sort of images. It's not frightening, it's just kind of that's very interesting. So, interesting things are happening with the brain all the time, and going into sleep is another fascinating way that the brain slows its brainwaves down and produces some interesting things sometimes.
Definitely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for, answering all the questions and being so open. It's absolutely fascinating what you do. What I have done, everyone, is in the description, there is the links to Paul's website. So if anyone's interested in looking into having a session with Paul, his details are up there. Also his social media links as well. So definitely give Paul either a follow on his YouTube page and see the work that he's done. And if you want to experience it, get in touch with Paul. But also, Paul will be making some appearances throughout the year at conventions. And I know one of them is the Parameets.
Yes.
In June. Are you there for the whole weekend?
So I'm there the whole weekend, 20th and 21st. As far as I know, all sessions are booked. I'm just going to recheck everybody who's booked, because the previous one in September, unfortunately, I caught COVID, so I wasn't able to go, which was a real shame. After that, I've got Swaddling Coat Town Hall on the 27th. Lost Souls Paracon, the 16th to the 18th of October in York. And I'm also doing Parameet on the 5th of September in Stratford-upon-Avon. So, I haven't quite put them on my website yet, but they're going out on my website. If you go to my YouTube channel, Past Life Regressions with Paul Goddard, I've done an announcement video with links to all the different ones that I'm going on to. But this week, or next week, I should say, everything's going to be updated on my website.
That's brilliant. Well, we'll definitely see you at the Parameet this year. So we've got a group of us that are going to be heading up that way and it'll be great to actually talk to you in person. And
Absolutely.
so we're definitely looking forward to that. But I just want to say again, thank you, Paul, for sharing your experience. It's fascinating what you do, and just to delve a little bit deeper, it's been great. I'm sure we'll catch up in the future and do another one.
Yes.
But also, I just want to say thank you for everyone that's taken part, asking their questions and listened. But I'm going to let Paul go because I know he has a busy day tomorrow. But again, thanks so much for joining us this evening. It's been great catching up with you. And I will see you in June.
See you in June. Thank you so much, and thank you for asking me on tonight.
No worries. Take care, Paul, and have a great weekend, pal.
You too. Take care now.
Bye. So there you go. Another great chat with Paul. Again, if you guys want to see him live, I will put in the description where he's going to be throughout the year with the Parameets, the Lost Souls Paracon. So definitely reach out to Paul. Such a nice guy. Away from the screens, you can have a chat with him, and I'm sure he could do great if anyone wants to look into hypnotherapy. But with regards to us, I will be back live tomorrow. So we were meant to do a live last week, talking about the most recent investigation at the Hovercraft Museum. But a lot of the stuff that I was downloading was taking ages. So I've got that booked in for tomorrow. So I will be live tomorrow evening, where we're going to discuss about the history of the Hovercraft Museum, things that guests that joined us on the night sent over, so we can analyze that, pictures, some EVPs, and we're going to talk about the history of the location itself as well, including one particular ghost story or spirit that's not linked to the actual Hovercraft Museum, but to the land around it. So we're going to discuss that. And we will be back live for another podcast on the 13th of March, where we will be joined by Emily Paranormal. I've spoken to her before, but she's been doing so much in the paranormal field. We're going to have another catch up. So please do join us. And again, thank you to everyone that joins, follows us, and shows support. It means a lot, and we enjoy having these catch ups and talking to everyone that we're getting to know. But for now, everyone have a great weekend, and I will see you back tomorrow evening. Bye, everyone.